And welcome in everyone to this week's episode of Craze's Corner. I'm Zach from Pro Football Craze, and I'm going to be here tonight to talk about some Dynasty buys and sells with Zach from Ocean State and Jeff and Will from Media, so you definitely want to make sure you stay tuned for that. But first, we got a few news stories to talk about. Dawson Knox has just signed a massive 4-year contract extension worth $53.6 million with over $30 million guaranteed. He's not one of the top elite tight ends, but this is a guy who was great in his role last year for the Buffalo Bills offense, and now he's getting paid like a top 5 tight end, so we love to see this. Another news story is that Emmanuel Sanders has announced his retirement from the NFL. This comes after his 11-year career, but he decided that it is time to call it quits. So we've seen the last of that smiling face on the football field, but he has a TV gig lined up, so we'll have to wait and see what that turns out to be. And the last news story, and probably, the one that people aren't super excited for, but Joe Flacco will be the Jets starting quarterback until at least week 4. Robert Saleh came out today and said that Zach Wilson won't be ready till at least week 4. Which means Joe Flacco will see a start this week against Baltimore, next week against Cleveland, and the week after that against the Bengals. So we're going to have to see how this turns out. If Joe Flacco goes 3-0 or 2-1, should the team go back to Zach Wilson at that point? What do you guys think they should do with that? Let us know using the Media app. The Media app is a virtual press conferencing app that allows you to host virtual press conference from your own phone and post it to all your social media platforms. We're working really hard on a new version of the app, so you're definitely going to want to make sure you stay tuned and check out the app. It's available on Google Play and the App Store. And now let's bring in our guests, Zach, Jeff, and Will. Thanks for joining, guys.
Yes, sir.
Good to be back.
Yeah, so we talked.
Let's go.
Let's go.
By the time this is aired, you'll have already been able to watch the first game of the season, but I know we're all excited. Will brought up before the show about the fact that, depending on what the Jets do in these first few weeks, will they be able to go back to Zach Wilson? What do you guys think if the Jets are doing well come week 4?
Go ahead, Dolphins fan.
Yeah, it's like Christmas for me. Anytime I hear that the Jets are starting Joe Flacco, I'm going to cheer that on. So I love what they're doing. Robert Saleh, keep it up. I think you should have Joe Flacco run quarterback all year. Maybe see if Frank Gore wants to come out of retirement. But yeah, this is awesome. Jets suck.
Which wide receiver said that Joe Flacco throws a better catchable ball? I was like, isn't that the guy you want to start?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, his teammates seem to like Joe Flacco. He's just not quite what he once was with the Ravens. We've seen him bounce around a little too much for my liking. He's just going to go on to probably be a mediocre quarterback, and they'll probably have
He could be Kurt Warner reborn. Remember, Kurt Warner went from the Rams
Kenny Stabler
to the Giants. Didn't do
Johnny
well.
Unitas
Ended up with the Cardinals in the Super Bowl.
Oh,
Who
man.
knows?
Oh, man.
We also have to remember these are the Jets, so we can hold off on that. But as I said earlier,
Zach, I was going to say. So then the question: what a disruption to dynasty leagues if this happens, right?
Yeah, you don't know whether or not Zach Wilson's actually the franchise quarterback anymore. Like that's. Luckily, they play a few good teams in the first couple weeks, so it shouldn't be a problem. But if it does turn out to be a problem, the Jets will have some decisions to make. And I'm glad I am not making those decisions for them. But as we said, we're going to be doing a Dynasty show this week. Each of us has 2 players we're trying to buy in Dynasty leagues currently, and 1 player we're trying to sell. So I'm going to kick it off with a guy that is currently being drafted as ADP RB30 in Dynasty leagues. This is a guy I like. I traded for him in a league recently. This is a guy that Will absolutely loves, and he's ready for him to take over. And that's Tony Pollard, 25-year-old running back currently for the Dallas Cowboys. He has 1 more year left on his deal. We see him getting more and more involved in the offense. And whether or not he's back with Dallas in 1 year's time or he's somewhere else, he's going to be extremely involved in whatever offense he is a part of. He's a very, very talented back, and he's shown flashes when he gets involved, whether it's through the passing game or the running game. Last year, he had over 5.5 yards per carry, and he almost had 40 receptions. So this is something that a guy that's been super productive when he's had the ball in his hands. And, you can say that's a product of the fact that Dallas's offensive line has been great, but they've been dealing with injuries the past year. Now they're kind of in a similar situation. Zeke doesn't have that burst anymore that he used to have. So I think Pollard's going to have a great year this year, as well as a great couple seasons, whether he comes back with Dallas and Zeke is gone or he signs somewhere else. Will, I know you're also super high on Tony Pollard, so what are your thoughts on him?
Oh, man, look. Hey, what a great player to own in Dynasty, because he's in the last year of his contract. I think by the end of the season, he's the running back 1 in Dallas, whether it's by injury or just performance. And then you're talking about a guy that's auditioning for a big paycheck, whether it's with the Cowboys or with another team. And so to be able to have him on your roster and go get him right now, because I think when you talk to fantasy guys, they still think it's Zeke's team. I'm telling you, living in Dallas, if you watched him last year, I think Jerry regrets paying Zeke all that money, because he could really have a great running back 1 with Pollard right now. So all I'd say is you can get him. I'd even give up a little more than I would normally give him in a Dynasty league right now, because I think this guy's going to be great. I don't think he's back in Dallas next year, because I don't think Dallas is going to be able to cut Zeke, in-franchise him, and pay him franchise running back money. So I think he's like with the Chiefs next year, or he's in maybe San Francisco or Seattle, somewhere where he can really work that offense a little bit better. Offense will be built around him, and I don't think Dallas will ever really build around him. So all I'd say is, look, if you can get Tony Pollard, get him.
Yeah, I agree. He's going to be valuable no matter where he is. Zach, do you have any thoughts on Tony Pollard? Are you in or out on the future, hope that he gets to be an RB1?
Well, I think he's a good dynasty buy for the reason being that he's also kind of plug and play, as well as you can kind of have him for the future. So those kind of players are definitely worth a buy, because it's, maybe some of the players we'll talk about, you might not have, the peak value of them right away. Whereas Tony Pollard could be top 12 running back this year. I mean, if anything happens to Zeke, who knows, maybe even higher.
Absolutely. Jeff, do you have any thoughts on Tony Pollard before we move on?
I think that he is going to be a successful back, but I'm always a little skittish on those guys that look like they are fringe starters or could be starters, and they get to a new situation, and then they kind of just fall a little flat. Just like really,
Kenyon Drake.
I think the best place for him to stay would be with the Cowboys, and the Cowboys find some way. I think they'll move on from Zeke, honestly. I think maybe, hopefully if they can, try to find somebody to move into. But yeah, especially if Zeke does not produce this season. There's already a video going around him today of being in a club till 5 in the morning. Some craziness. I didn't even get to see what it all was, but it's another one of those things you don't want out there.
Right.
When you're competing with a guy that could be your eventual replacement. So
yeah, absolutely. Jeff, we're going to move on to one of your dynasty buys here. Which one would you like to bring up first?
Let's see.
Let's ride.
That's not what. I would go ahead and say my buys. Well, everybody already knows this because I bought him in leagues. But I have a feeling towards the end of the year that Romeo Doubs is going to be the man in Green Bay. I mean, the opportunity is going to be there. I see Will smirking at this. Let me tell you the disrespect this young man has faced. We're in the draft this weekend, and I took him like in the last couple of picks in the draft. They didn't even have his sticker. They had a sticker with Le'Veon Bell. I had to actually write this guy in. But, man, I mean, with Lazard possibly being injured, Sammy Watkins, he's hit or miss, and he's usually good for about 2 games max. Christian Watson is not 100%. Rodgers has to throw the ball to somebody, and I think out of him, Amari Rodgers and Randall Cobb, who has been there, been kind of healthy, just doesn't have the speed, doesn't have the route running ability anymore that he used to. This guy is prime. He's got talent. They were talking about him in the draft, but he was still kind of, overshadowed by a lot of other guys that went before him. I think he's going to emerge, man. And I think a lot of people, if they don't get him on the waiver wire, they're going to be like, man, I missed out on this guy. So I'm glad I got in on him early. A lot of people are saying he's hype again, but I think he has the talent to pay off.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that there's a chance he could turn off. But for me, if I had Romeo Doubs in a Dynasty league, I would be looking to find the Jeff of my league and try and capitalize on the fact that there's lots of hype around Romeo right now. And just the fact that I think there is a chance, I just think it's a really small chance that he becomes Aaron Rodgers' number 1 wide receiver. Especially this year, it could happen in the future. I'm just a little skeptical. Will, do you feel the same way as me, or are you more on Jeff's side? I know you're a Vikings fan, so this one's close to home.
It depends on the shelf life of Aaron Rodgers. If Doubs connects with Rodgers and Rodgers plays 4 years, yeah. But what you're asking me to do is speculate on a wide receiver who's a rookie, who may get force-fed the ball because Rodgers doesn't have anywhere else to go. And is it Rodgers or is it the wide receiver? So if Doubs was with the Jets, would you be taking him? Nope. And if the answer is no, then I'm
not taking any of them.
So it's I think if you're in Dynasty and you have Doubs, you got to watch what happens with Devontae Adams. Because Devontae Adams he doesn't have to put up the numbers to put in Green Bay. He just has to put up decent numbers. But if Devontae Adams becomes the canary in the coal mine, that without Aaron Rodgers he can't play at the level we expect him to, then honestly, I'm right with you, Zach. I am trying to find the Jeff of my league, and I'm trying to sell it for 3 first-round picks.
Let me say this, though. The other reason I'm looking at this is not just about him being with Aaron Rodgers. He actually looked decent with Jordan Love. Matter of fact, he caught a touchdown from Jordan Love. So that's the other thing that kind of – I'm like, if he can work with Jordan Love, he should be able to work even better with Aaron Rodgers.
So we
let me go get Doubs and Love, and let me send them to you for whatever you'll give me, because
yeah, I mean, catching a touchdown pass in the preseason, not that hard to do. I'm sure we've all can remember some players who no one else can remember caught a touchdown pass in the preseason at one point. Zach, what are your thoughts on Romeo Doubs?
Yep, talking to you, Marquez Callaway. Yeah, no, totally. Tough, man. Packers wide receiver has to be probably the top 5 mysteries going into the NFL fantasy season this year. So it's kind of like playing, Russian roulette. Hopefully, instead of having a bullet, hopefully you have the starting wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers. But 4 other people are going to make the wrong decision. So hopefully you don't overdraft them or overpay for them. So.
Yeah, it's really just, throwing a dart at the dartboard and hoping that Aaron Rodgers picks your guy. But let's move on to your first Dynasty buy. Who you want to talk about first?
I'm going to be a homer. I'm telling you, Justin Jefferson. And it's going to be a price to pay. But I think in this offense, if you're going to get him, you got to get him before week 1. Because if this offense is like the Rams with him, the price is only going to go up all season. And, look, the hype about who's going to be Offensive Player of the Year or maybe MVP, you're getting all these stories written this week about him on that short list of both. And if he puts up numbers, I mean, what? Michael Irvin said Kirk Cousins is MVP? Holy crap. When have you ever heard Kirk Cousins' name in a discussion about MVP in the NFL? Right? So,
you like that.
Oh, yeah, you like that, right? So, look, if you're good, if you want Justin Jefferson, you got a week.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
After this, if he breaks 2,000 yards, which he almost did before in that offense with Mike Zimmer, right? I mean, run first and second down and throw on third. If they run that Ram offense and he starts putting up fantasy points, and you're in Dynasty and you could have got him now, like, oh, I had to give up 2 first-round picks or I had to give up a lot, it's going to look cheap if he's putting up the big numbers.
Yeah, I think that was going to be my only pushback is like, I agree with you, and I have him as my wide receiver 1 going into the season. I just wonder like what the price tag is. That would be the only, if I'm just playing devil's advocate, it's like you're probably giving up a lot, but at the same time, I mean, you're guaranteeing at least a top 3 wide receiver for the next 8 years, probably, maybe longer. Who knows? I mean, these guys are like all about nutrition, working out year round. So these guys are probably going to play longer and longer as time goes on. So,
yeah, I agree. I think he's valued right around where he should be. Currently, he's the Dynasty wide receiver 2, and I would probably have him as my wide receiver 1.
He's only 23. He's only 23.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, he's still super young,
That's
and like
thing.
Zach, he's got tons of years left, and he's been putting up numbers with Kirk Cousins as his quarterback. So it can go down a little bit, but it's not like he's playing with the elite of the elite, and then he has to go from Aaron Rodgers down to Baker Mayfield or something like that. There's not a huge gap.
Well, you said you said theoretically 2 first-round picks. I'll tell you what, last year, I mean, whatever, I'm not the greatest, but I took Michael Carter in the first round of my Dynasty draft last year. And I think this year I took I honestly forgot whoever
you took
it was.
James Cook.
Who was it? It was James Cook. That's who it was.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, we know what Michael Carter is. Who knows what James Cook is? So there's 2 first-round picks right there. Now, would you rather have Justin Jefferson or those 2 guys?
Yeah,
don't you think there'll be some owners?
So when you say trading first-round picks, yeah, it's like you don't know who your first-round picks are going to be. You know Justin Jefferson is going to be a top wide receiver for the next at least 8 to 10 years.
Yeah, for sure. Jeff, do you have anything you want to add?
Yep. Gotta watch out, man. Jalen Rager's going to come in there stealing targets.
Is there a mute button on Jeff? Is there a mute button on Jeff?
We got to ask Jeff what he's been drinking tonight.
You heard it here first.
Jalen Rager.
Here first.
The real wide receiver 1.
Will, where's the mute button? Where's the mute button, Will?
No, I'm just going to let him talk. He has to.
Could happen. Who knows?
It could.
No. I'm just going to segue into
Rager's
Zach.
like, hey, just remember, I was getting paid more than you for a little while.
True.
Yeah, that one pick really screwed the Eagles over there. But Zach, let's get into your Dynasty buy. I want to bring up your second guy first, A.J. Brown for the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll talk about your other guy later, but let's talk about A.J. Brown first. So why do you think A.J. Brown is a good buy right now in Dynasty?
I just think there's kind of this like dark cloud around A.J. Brown's outlook this season. And I don't know if there's that much of a difference going from Tennessee's offense going to Philadelphia's offense. It's not like they're going from a pass happy, guns blazing offense that we see maybe in like Kansas City. Like he's coming from Tennessee where they had Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill is a slightly better version of Jalen Hurts as far as like passing. So, and I think the year that A.J. Brown was a top 12 wide receiver, or something like that, was like 2020. Ryan Tannehill was his quarterback, and compared to how many pass attempts Jalen Hurts had last year, I think it was only like 50 fewer, right? So it's not like he's going to this drastic cutoff as far as pass production. So I think if you can take advantage of someone who has that idea that like, oh man, I'm kind of down on AJ Brown, and he's still only 25 years old, I think you'd probably be able to get him at a value that he's going to instantly return, like another guy you can plug and play. And you'll have him like at 25 years old, another 5 years of a top 15 wide receiver.
Yeah, I think I get what you're saying there. I'm a little weary of AJ Brown in the Eagles offense just due to Jalen Hurts' passing touchdown number. I don't think he'll get up to, I think Ryan Tannehill had around 33 in 2020 when AJ Brown had that top number, and I think AJ Brown had 11 touchdowns. And last year in the playoff team that the Eagles were, Jalen Hurts threw for 16 touchdowns. So I don't see a way where A.J. Brown ends up this year with double-digit touchdowns. And who knows if Jalen Hurts will be their quarterback next year. So I like the talent of A.J. Brown, but if Jalen Hurts continues to be their quarterback, not only now, but in the future, I'm just weary that he's not going to get back up to those touchdown numbers. But if the guy who has him is also worried about Jalen Hurts and these touchdown numbers and the passing volume, you could definitely – there's definitely going to be times where he's going to be at a value in comparison to other players. So it's definitely a situation to monitor. He's not a guy I'm specifically targeting. Will, do you have anything you want to say on A.J. Brown?
And I don't know about y'all, but in the drafts last week, it was so hard because it was just hard to think which Eagles are going to show up. I like the talent. I was afraid to draft them, though. Like, I think and I might come back to bite me in some of my leagues, but there were players on the board. If they were an Eagle, I notched them down a little bit because I'm just really not sure, honestly. And A.J. Brown could put up big numbers, or it could just be horrible. I think it's feast or famine. I don't know if there's a middle there, and that's what scares me.
Yeah, I think there is. Jeff, do you have anything you want to add on A.J. Brown? Are you in or out on this Eagles offense?
Again, it's hard to say. I see the potential. I'll say it like that. If you think about it, they have a sneaky good receiver core with A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and Dallas Goedert. But the thing is just, are they going to utilize it? Now, I'm all in on A.J. Brown. If they start trying to utilize him the way that the 49ers utilized Deebo Samuels last year, if he's running, if it's a lot of dump offs, and letting him get the run after the catch. But if they're looking at him as just a pure receiver, I don't know exactly what you're going to get. They're talking about Hurts being a little bit more accurate this year, that he's been working on his passing. So that tells me they might look at throwing the ball a little bit more. Nobody really scares me coming out of the backfield other than Hurts, for the Eagles. So maybe they will try to establish a passing game this year. But that's just it. I don't see him being a dominant wide receiver. I kind of have that same feeling with Deebo Samuel. Now, him just getting the ball in his hands, he's almost like they remind me of bigger Tyreek Hills. With the ball in his hand, he's dangerous. But if it's limited on, I would say 20 yards in deeper passes, they're not that type of receivers to me. They're not a Justin Jefferson. They're not a Jamar Chase where these guys are going deep, receiving these precise precision passes. Their guys get the ball into their hands and let them destroy guys. And then there's the health factor as well. Sometimes A.J. Brown hamstring or he gets a little nicked up here. So it's really difficult to see. I'm one of those guys where I'm starting to look at the first 5 games of the season. Sometimes it might be too late, but if he's killing, he's in an offense now where they're not depending on a Derrick Henry. He might be the focus of that offense. So he could pay huge dividends. It's just really difficult to put all my chips in on him when I really don't know what to expect. Talent is definitely there for sure.
So any closing remarks there, Zach, on A.J. Brown before we move on?
You'd mentioned the touchdowns. That would be my only thing that I wanted to touch on. So you're expecting another double-digit rushing TD season from Jalen Hurts.
No, but I'm expecting touchdowns to Miles Sanders.
I'll take that bet all day that those touchdowns will be funneled towards AJ Brown's direction and not Miles Sanders' direction. So let's say Jalen Hurts takes away 5 rushing touchdowns, converts those to 5 passing touchdowns. You had 16 last year. That's 21. I like to share that AJ Brown as being just an alpha wide receiver 1 could come down with at least 6 of those. He can walk away with 6 touchdowns, hover right around 1,000 yards and like 70 receptions, which is easily doable in this offense. You'll be very happy for kind of how people are viewing him coming into the season, I believe. But then again, I could be completely wrong. So that's a good thing about fantasy football. We'll find out that I suck.
The touchdowns, just because Miles Sanders had no rushing touchdowns last year, so that number has to go up. So that'll take a few more touchdowns.
Not with Miles Sanders. Not any other running back.
Exactly. You got 19 to choose from, so
right.
Yeah.
Daniel Wells, Boston Scott, you never know. Some other guy off the practice squad that they pull up, you never know with the Eagles. That's
any player that says don't draft me in fantasy, like understood. Well noted.
Yeah, I'm just nervous about the Eagles offense as a whole, really. But let's move on. We're going to talk about a guy that I know I like. I know you guys also like. And that's going to be Christian Kirk, wide receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars, currently hovering in ADP around the wide receiver 50 range. And this is a guy who is just paid to be an elite wide receiver 1 in this Jaguars offense. Yeah, paid. And he's probably going to be the wide receiver 1 in this Jaguars offense. I know I'm expecting a big year from Trevor Lawrence this year. I think he's got the possibility to finish as a top 12 quarterback. And Christian Kirk is a talented wide receiver. We haven't really seen him as a wide receiver 1 in an offense. But I want to see what Doug Peterson can do. And as I said, they paid him to be a wide receiver 1. Outside of Kenny Golladay, most people who are paid to be wide receiver 1s turn out to be wide receiver 1s. So as long as we don't have a Kenny Golladay situation on our hands, I have a little bit more faith in Trevor Lawrence than I did in Daniel Jones. So put both those things together, and Christian Kirk should be in for a good year this year. And not only this year, but he's under contract for 4 more years, and Trevor Lawrence will be as well with this 5th-year option picked up. So I like that pairing for the next 4 years. Having a wide receiver 1 currently, he could eventually turn into be the Jaguars wide receiver 2. But because I project Trevor Lawrence to take steps in the right direction, not only this season, but in future seasons, I like Christian Kirk as a dynasty buy this year. Jeff, what do you think about Christian Kirk?
I like him a lot more now that they got rid of Laviska Shenault, who never really did anything. So other than him, they have Evan Ingram and Mr. Marvin Jones Jr., who is a little bit older. Still a decent wide receiver, though. But I see a lot of targets going to him this year. My thing is, though, still, again, I don't know what to expect from that offense, because looking at Doug Peterson when he was with the Eagles, it was things were really spread around. Even the whole running back situation was you never know who was going to be the guy that week. The only guy you could kind of count on was Alshon Jeffrey, which is kind of the opposite of Christian Kirk, the type of receiver that he is. So, I expect him to get a lot of targets underneath if he's running out of the slot. I don't know where he's going to be lined up. But right now, he is definitely, I would point to him as the wide receiver 1. So he's going to be getting a lot of targets. So if Trevor Lawrence is the truth and is one of those top 12 quarterbacks, you're going to be sitting pretty, and you're going to look like a really smart guy. But if they are the Jaguars, as usual, like something happens when you get to Duval, when you get to Jacksonville, it just
Duval.
Then you're going to be like, damn. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think that they're going to be decent this year.
Will, what are your thoughts on Christian Kirk?
We'll see.
Will has.
I don't know. I like Christian Kirk. I just don't know if I would be trading for him in a dynasty unless unless it's really lopsided my way. Right. And I think he has potential. And it's one of those guys kind of like you can get him now and it hits. It's a big win. I just wouldn't overpay for him. So I don't know what a trade would look like for him.
We could pull it up if Zach would be so kind to see what the
currently pulling up on Fantasy Pros trade value chart. They
I believe
have Christian Kirk as 24 points. So just looking up draft pick wise, they have him around a second round pick, early to mid second round pick for Christian Kirk. And I would much rather have Christian Kirk
than a second round pick. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's in a 12-team league as well. So your second round pick is
wow.
Question for you guys, because I always thought about this with Dynasty. Like, I think as fans, we watch the NFL draft and you hear things like the Jimmy Johnson trade chart and all that. and the league is designed to value draft picks.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think fantasy should be the opposite? Like we because we're conditioned from the NFL draft, we value draft picks when in reality we shouldn't.
Yeah, I think that's fair because in fantasy, there's a bunch of busts you get. As Zach said, you take Michael Carter last year in the first round, and then the Jets go out and draft Breece Hall in the second round this year to be his replacement already. No hate to Michael Carter. It's just that Michael Carter probably won't be the running back one for that team.
Yeah, I mean, there was that couple stretch of games with Mike White where I was like, wow, I really hit on this pick. And so you can even feel like you hit on your draft picks in Dynasty. And again, like Zach said, here goes the Jets being the Jets. They draft another running back and now have Joe Flacco as their starting quarterback. So that's just karma going their way for making fantasy tough for us.
Yeah, and Zach, anything you want to add to the Christian Kirk situation before we move on?
Yeah, any wide receiver that can, because targets are earned, any wide receiver that can earn 100 targets in my book is a wide receiver one, or has the ceiling of a wide receiver one. He did that last year in Arizona. No real threat on the field with him. Like Jeff mentioned, no more Laviska Shenault, which I don't know if he's really much of a threat, but I guess he would technically on paper be fighting for targets with him. So Christian Kirk, a great value in not only Dynasty, but redraft as well too.
All right, Jeff, let's move on to your next Dynasty buy here. Who you want to talk about?
Jameson Williams, man. People are forgetting about this guy in drafts.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing about it is you can put him on your IR. And you know, and that's what I was.
What numbers?
People are forgetting, you know, when
it's
you
IR.
go and you look at the Justin Jeffersons, you look at the Jamar Chase, you know, this kid here was drafted very high. He could be one of those generational wide receivers. And people aren't, that's the difference with drafting somebody like Michael Carter. You know, we don't, if you're going to go to one of those franchises like the Jets or a Lions, it's got to be somebody that is going to change that franchise and be the face of that franchise, because most of the time those teams mismanage their draft picks. You know, they can take somebody that has all the talent in the world, take them in the second round, and they end up doing nothing because the coaches don't know what the hell to do with them, you know, which seems like what's happening to Michael Carter, unfortunately, because I still think he's a great running back, and I think he's going to thrive somewhere else other than the Jets. But with Jameson Williams, you know, I think this dude could be one of those guys that turns around that franchise. If Amon St. Ra is still a quality, strong wide receiver 2, this guy ends up being a wide receiver 1. This team could look similar to the Bengals if they, who knows, you know, Jared Goff might still be an above average quarterback and be able to at least get this team to the playoffs with a wide receiver core like that, you know. So people are forgetting about him. I'm scooping him up in every draft that I can. Unfortunately, I couldn't scoop him up in our dynasty draft because Zach beat me to him. But yeah, that's a guy that I'm targeting because that's some serious value if this dude ends up turning out to be, even 3/4 of what Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson are.
Yeah, to me, I think that he was the best wide receiver coming out of this class. And to answer your question, so this guy kind of pissed me off. Out of college, he came into the NFL and chose number 18. And then he goes and changes his number to 9 right after I bought a jersey. So I now have a rare limited edition number 18.
That's the way to sell it. The rare limited edition IR edition.
He did that because he figured he's only going to play half a season. So he's like, just cut it down to 9.
Just cut a piece of that 8 out, and it looks like IR.
There you go. Do some editing.
Like I said, as Jeff said, I took him in the Dynasty League. I have him in multiple Dynasty Leagues. I love Jameson Williams, the talent, and I hope everything goes well for him on his recovery and he can get back. Just kind of upset he changed his number. Zach, what do you think about Jameson Williams?
I think the Detroit Lions selected about 20 different wide receivers in the first round in the past 20 years, and all but Calvin Johnson had a career, including other wide receivers with the last name Williams, Roy Williams, and the OG Mike Williams before the Mike Williams we know now. I say that all jokingly because Jameson Williams was honestly probably going to be my wide receiver 1 coming into the NFL prior to the injury, which was unfortunate. But he's kind of like that Tyreek Hill style wide receiver where I think he can thrive in any offense. But I guess the injury is where you're finding the value right now, I guess, if you're trading for him. But yeah, I like the outlook for the next few seasons. But I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is actually, I was a doubter before, but I think he's pretty legit. I mean, I watched that Hard Knocks, dude. He just looks like above the competition. So he might be for real. And DJ Chark, he might be something. So other than that, I don't know how he kind of becomes valuable for you in 2022, but maybe if you're looking for the future, he's your guy.
Yeah, I think he's a guy for next year. Not sold on him, coming in right away post ACL injury and just absolutely lighting it up this year. He's also got this guy who really isn't good at playing quarterback, throwing in the ball currently. So we need that to change going into next year as well.
Talk about David Blau.
I wish we were talking about David Blau because he's not bad, but Jared Goff,
he deserved better.
He did deserve better, but Jared Goff, I'm not super excited about him.
He got it. You said he deserved better. He got it.
But Will, do you have anything you want to add to Jameson Williams? Are you in on the talent or are you out because
I'm in on the talent? I'm just not in on the franchise, and I'm not in on the quarterback.
But the quarterback's not going to be their quarterback of the future.
And there rests the real problem. Do you trust the Detroit Lions to get a quarterback in there?
No.
With this talent? No.
Well, they had a real good quarterback for multiple years.
Joey Harrington.
Jared Goff. They found Matthew Stafford. I'm sure they can get another good
I think the thing that scares me, it scares me for the Lions in fantasy is, let's say the Lions aren't that good. Let's say they're 4-13, 5-12, right? They're high enough in next year's draft to get a quarterback that will entice everybody. And then you're sitting there in next year's draft and you're thinking, oh, man, they got so-and-so from Florida, so-and-so, whatever quarterback you want to plug in. And you think about the talent around them. We've seen that story before, like Zach was saying. We've seen that story before. And it just makes me nervous. I'll be honest with you. Like, some franchises make you nervous. And this coaching staff, I don't know, man. And it's a shame. It's just a shame because guys get drafted by the wrong teams and it ruins their career. And
that's what we got rid of Jim Caldwell, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
That's always been my game.
I mean, they made their best player ever want to retire in the prime of his career.
And nothing's really changed about the organization.
Both their best players, right?
That has not really changed.
Yep.
So,
I mean, have you guys been to Detroit before?
Yeah.
No, it's terrible. Shout out to the city of Detroit. Keep going. Grit.
Hate mail from Detroit.
Yeah.
Right.
It's dangerous, Mayo.
Let's move on to Will's next dynasty buy. He was brought up earlier in the show. Guy who Zach drafted in his dynasty league. Go ahead, Will. Who are we buying on?
The reason I'm high on James Cook is because he fits this offense. And even if it's not this year, it will be next year. And because there's that doubt, we don't know. I mean, I think James Cook is RB1 there. I don't know if we really know for this season. I think you can get him. You can get him now. Get him before he hits. And yeah, I'm balling on James Cook. I'm trying to get him in every league I can. Even this year in redraft leagues, in Dynasty, I'm trying to get him this year. I want James Cook on my roster because I think he's an RB1, and I think in a couple of years he's top in a redraft league. He's a top 3 pick.
That is definitely bold. We know Will is going to ride or die with James Cook. If this whole James Cook situation doesn't go right, we may not hear from Will for a while. But I like it. I think James Cook is definitely a buy candidate if you can get him at a value. There are still a lot of questions with who's it going to be this year, and then whether or not the Bills will just give him the reins next year. And after that, they spent a second-round pick, but it was at the end of the second round, so we'll see how much the team actually values the draft capital they put into him. But I do like the pick, and I think he is a part of one of the best offenses in football. And he fits the offense and what they should be looking to do with the running back position very well. So I like the pick here. Zach, what do you think about James Cook?
Yep, you mentioned it. I took him. I mean, I think I had 2 rookie drafts
this year. You took him right before me.
Yep, and I was able to grab him in the 8th overall pick, I want to say, out of a 12-team league. And, running backs are always a little bit valued more than the rest of the competition, I think, especially in these 12-team leagues. But I do like what James Cook brings to Buffalo because if you kind of audited their offense last year and just looked for their weaknesses, it was having a quality receiving back, and that's the one thing I believe James Cook is. We talked about all the collegiate work that he has, all the production, and how sure of hands he has, and that's. I think Josh Allen just can't keep rushing for all those touchdowns, and he just can't keep rushing forever. So maybe if you stagger the time of when James Cook will finally take over, hopefully it kind of lines up with the part of Josh Allen's career where he's just not rushing as much and doing a little more dumping down to the running back. And then you mentioned it, James Cook on a potential Super Bowl favorite, you got to like the odds, especially when it's a rookie running back for fantasy.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff, do you have anything you want to add to the James Cook situation before we move on?
I really think he's going to be productive, but he's just not productive in the way that I like my running back to be. I don't see him yet as a traditional 3-down back. Not to say that Buffalo even needs a guy that's a traditional 3-down back because Josh Allen usually runs the ball so much. So that's why I'm figuring there's always going to be another guy there. It seems like it's always going to be a committee. It's not just going to be his backfield. If it's not going to be Devin Singletary, it's going to be somebody. It just seems like that's what McDermott likes to do. And that's the only, strike that I have against James Cook. He's battling, the quarterback around the goal line, and then he's going to be battling somebody else that might get in there, as soon 3rd down. So he's going to get 2 touches, but then he might line up as a wide receiver. But they got 19,000 wide receivers. So it's just like, where's, until that offense seems like it's pared down to where there's not so many choices, I don't know if he's the type of running back that I want. That's, just me.
That's fair.
That's fair.
It is fair. There's definitely questions on whether or not this team is the Super Bowl favorite. I think that this team is going to have a great offense. And you bring in a guy that this team now has a new play caller with Ken Dorsey, who was a part of the Panthers organization for a while before he was a Bill. And you look at the running backs that the Panthers were able to sustain, whether that was D'Angelo Williams, Jonathan Stewart, Christian McCaffrey. The Panthers always had great production from the running backs. So I think
Tim
that's something
Biakabatua.
So I think that's something that Ken Dorsey could look to implement more into this Bills offense as opposed to what we saw last year, which also bodes well for James Cook. Before we move on to Zach's next guy, I just want to say this is a Dynasty buy and sell show. So this next guy is a buy, but he's also Jeff's sell. So Jeff and Zach are going to have to go back to back here. Zach, this is why I made you wait to talk about Travis Etienne.
Yep.
So Zach, let me know why you think Travis Etienne is a buy. And then once he's done, Jeff, you can let us know why you think he's a sell.
All right. Court is in session. All right, Your Honor, if you look back at all of the first-round running backs that have been drafted in the NFL, they have all been extremely valuable for fantasy with the exception of bum Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And that goes all the way back to Ezekiel Elliott in 2016. It's about as steady of a fantasy football prediction stat that we have in the last 6 years. Travis Etienne would have been the next running back to do that if he had not, unfortunately, sustained a preseason injury. Yes, they may have James Robinson as a starting running back. Get out of here with that. I don't, unless this guy is a Wolverine. It's, you know what I mean? Like, I understand the Cam Akers thing, but it's like, I just, there's no way James Robinson is going to come in and be the starting running back. Travis Etienne will have plenty of opportunity on an improved offense. I know Zach's all on board with Trevor Lawrence this year.
Sir.
I'm the last time Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne played together, Travis Etienne led the country in, I believe it was receptions. It was either receptions or receiving yards. So there is literally history between, very rarely do you have a combination of college players that go into the NFL, especially at these two positions, and then play together, you know? So we have actual history on these guys. Granted, college is different, but they were playing at the highest level of college football.
In the ACC.
Right. Still.
Wow. Just first Detroit, now the ACC. What would be great?
But you know, for those reasons, I think Travis Etienne is a buy because I think a lot of people are scared about the James Robinson news. So I think if you can play into those fears, you're going to be able to get a very young running back who, if you look at some of those preseason training videos where all the running backs got together, Melvin Gordon and the guys, all the boys were hanging out doing their own private drills. Travis Etienne by far looked the sharpest, the quickest, and that's most likely because he's the youngest. So I always like young running backs, especially in the PPR. He's got a ton of pass catching upside.
All right, Jeff, let's hear it. Let's hear your rebuttal.
There's a whole lot of reasons. One, as soon as Doug Peterson became the coach, that's one thing right there. He thrives on running backs by committees. You never know. The only guy that he had that had over 800 yards was Miles Sanders for one season. And there were so many other guys that touched the ball. You just never knew who that guy was going to be. Second thing, Doug Peterson actually really likes James Robinson, so he showed him something. And James Robinson is a really, really good, productive running back, especially when he's healthy. Now they're talking about he's back to 100%. This dude can carry a load. I was like, hey, come to Seattle. If we hadn't got Kenneth Walker or anybody else, it was like, please bring him over here. This dude is one of those guys that was unheralded in college, just worked his tail off. He's one of those guys that won't go away. Other thing is, against that LSU defense in that national championship game, Etienne disappeared. That whole offense was kind of stymied by that defense. So, you know, that's why I look at a lot of those guys that come out of the ACC, and I liked Etienne when he was in college. I thought for sure this dude was going to be a home run, slam, a surefire guy coming out. And then I started to see certain things, especially in that last game and the injury that he had. We don't know. I mean, he looks like he's very strong and everything. We don't know how durable he is because he did have, a couple of nicks and things in college. So that's my only thing, just where he is, who he's in the backfield with, what the coach tends to do with his running backs. And again, it's in Jacksonville. It's with the Jaguars as well.
Duval.
You just, he's got a lot of things against him. Not to say he won't succeed, but there's a lot of guys that were taking him, high in not only in Dynasty, but in redrafts, where some of these guys, my eyes were like, oh my God, you just took him over Dameon Peirce. Guys like that. But anyway,
man,
that's my thing. And it only because I go by carries, how many carries I think a guy's going to get, the volume of touches. But that's it. He may go out and steal and be, dynamic and everything else, but he's got a lot of things against him in my eyes.
Yeah, I like the stack of Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne. I think he's going to see a lot of pass catching work out of the backfield, not only this season, but for the next 4 or 5 seasons that him and Lawrence play together in Jacksonville. James Robinson's a restricted free agent after this year, so whether or not the team brings him back, they probably will for another year, but after that, there's a great chance that he's gone. And Travis Etienne has not only the draft capital, but he has the talent as well as the connection with the quarterback already, where I think that the Jaguars will let him be the RB1. If it's not this year because they're in love with James Robinson, it will be next year. So I don't necessarily like him as a buy or a sell. I like him as a hold because I think if you're going to buy him, the guy who has Travis Etienne right now is probably in love with Travis Etienne. Right. So there isn't really a value there. But I also don't think he's a guy you should be looking to sell because I think he's a guy that's going to be very valuable over the next couple of seasons. Will, do you have anything you want to add into this conversation here?
Look, if Robinson plays this week and it's a 50-50 split, ETN owners are going to be livid and they're going to panic. Because then you're going to start the same discussion we have about Detroit. You're going to start thinking about Jacksonville. Holy crap, they're going to F this up. Let me move him while I can. And to me, Etienne's a long buy. He's not a this season buy. He'll put up good numbers this year. Next year, whether if it's in Jacksonville, and I'm going to assume it's going to be Jacksonville, third year of a rookie quarterback when they make the jump. And him being 1 year removed from his injury, hopefully he doesn't get hurt this year, ready next year. It's almost like him and Lawrence are going to peak at the right time. Third year quarterback, running back.
Love it.
It's going to be so. If you're buying him, you're maybe not buying him for this year. You're for a dynasty league. You're buying him for the next 5 seasons. Mm-hmm. And honestly, if you're looking to buy him, you're hoping James Robinson gets half the carries this week.
Yeah, I think if
you may be able to freak these owners out.
If the Travis Etienne owner starts to panic, because I think they will probably be around a 50-50 snap split, Travis Etienne will probably see more targets, and James Robinson will probably see more carries. If I had to guess, just projecting what's going to happen in this game, but I think, as you said, if you sense that the Travis Etienne owner starts to panic because of that snap split, that's definitely a situation where you can look into buying him. And I agree. He's not necessarily – I don't think he's going to be a league winner this year, but I think he has that potential in the future years to be that league winner. Jeff and Zach, anything else you want to add before we move on?
Well, that's all I'm saying. I know guys, it's either one of those love-hate scenarios, and I'd be looking for a guy like Zach that's just like, this guy is going to hit and see what I could get. That's where my sell is, because I see guys really, really, it's either all in on this dude or not, to where in redraft, they're going to take him within the top 3 picks. And I'm just like, wow, for me, that's a little high.
Yeah, I mean, from like the exercise stance, that's kind of why I chose him as a buy, because of the whole being nervous about James Robinson. Where I don't really think you need to be worried about an undrafted guy coming off one of the most devastating injuries a running back could ever face. There's no like statistical evidence that you can become anything better than a backup for Christian McCaffrey, and that's Devonta Foreman, who took 4 years to come back to even play in the NFL, never mind just be able to recover from that. So that's kind of why I honestly agree with you, Jeff, to be totally real, but it's like, take advantage of that owner that's scared of James Robinson.
Yeah, I think that's a good situation. Let's move on to my Dynasty sell. Jeff's probably not going to be happy with this one either. And that's Dameon Peirce. I think Dameon Peirce is a Dynasty sell right now.
Give him to me.
There is currently all the hype around Dameon Peirce. Zach and I just saw him traded for a 2023 first-round pick. And
you
can get anywhere near a 2023 first-round pick for Dameon Peirce, I would do that in a heartbeat. I think there's so much hype around Dameon Peirce. He was only a 4th-round draft pick. And we were just talking about this guy. Zach drafted him last year. Michael Carter, who was a 4th-round draft pick. He had a great rookie year, and then they just drafted his replacement because he was only a 4th-round draft pick. Dameon Peirce is not going to be the franchise running back for the Houston Texans. He will be good in redraft this year, but he's not going to be the franchise guy for the Texans in the future. What? He will be replaced eventually. And this is just a situation where I think his value, whether it's at its peak, mid to late season, he's a guy that if I had, I would be looking to capitalize on all this hype and the fact that he's going to be the RB1 for this team this year in Dynasty. I'm not excited for his next year and the year after that. Outlooks on a bad team, low draft capital. And, like I said, it's very similar to what we saw from Michael Carter last year. He was the RB1 for a bad team.
Totally different.
4th-round pick. Both guys had their fans coming out of college. It's just, I can't see a situation where Dameon Peirce is starting for the Texans in 3 or 4 years. It's not going to happen. I'm very willing to move on if I can get a 2023 first-round pick in a draft class that everyone expects to be absolutely loaded.
Yeah.
I'm easily willing to move on from Dameon Peirce. Jeff, you are the Dameon Peirce stan.
Can you please, in our league, make a trade with Zach so he can give you Dameon Peirce? You give him, and I'll gladly give you my 1st-round pick for next year. And I'm telling you, totally different scenario on a couple of things here than the Jets. You have Robert Saleh coming in for the Jets, first-time head coach. Honestly, nobody in that organization knows what the hell they are doing to have any of those guys succeed. Lovie Smith has a track record with running backs. He knows what he can get out of these guys. Nobody really thought Matt Forte was going to be a household name when he came out. This dude had a long tenure with the Chicago Bears. This is the same type of back. The Texans, a lot of people are writing them off, keep saying that they're bad, but yet I keep seeing everybody draft Brandon Cooks, see people draft Davis Mills. They actually have a decent line. If you go back, I know it was preseason, but that was 49ers' first-string defense in there, and they pushed those guys around. And Dameon Peirce looked really good behind that line. So I honestly think people are really writing off Houston when they may not be a team that should be written off, this season. I keep hearing people saying they're going to be bad. They're going to be playing from behind. Nobody in the AFC South other than possibly the Colts really scare me. So I think this team could surprise people, and this could be they've got a decent coach, they've got a decent OC and Pep Hamilton. These guys have the pieces in place to do what they plan on doing, and I think just like they're doing with Davis Mills, a lot of people were like, "This dude is not going to be their franchise quarterback." It started to look like this guy is going to be their franchise quarterback. And if Dameon Peirce actually has a decent season, this dude could be cemented in as their franchise running back. I can see the same thing happening. Only thing that will change is if Lovie Smith ends up getting fired because they do have a very bad season. Then I will go ahead and I'll have to, be stuck with a bad stock in Dameon Peirce. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think that this is just a team where it's very hard to predict what they're going to do. I think that there's a real good chance that if they have a bad season, they'll be drafting another quarterback and running back next year for all they know. And Lovie Smith might be out. We just saw them fire a coach after one season. So what's to stop them from doing it again? Literally nothing. Like I said, I think Dameon Peirce is going to be great this year. I just don't see that year after year value that you could possibly get from a first round pick next year.
Arian Foster. That's who I was on to think. Nobody thought that dude was going to turn into something. This guy could be. I've just seen it too many times. So that's it. I'll be quiet now.
Will, what do you think about Dameon?
I think I have concerns. Like it's funny we keep revolving these conversations around franchises that fans don't trust. And I think Houston is one of the teams that, especially in fantasy, you're like, oh my God, they're going to screw this up. And so I could see Peirce having a good year, but then I also look at they're $50 million under the cap. There are going to be running backs available next year that we can't even imagine. I think the Packers move on from Jones. I think the Vikings move on from Cook. You got Jacobs, who's a free agent. And unfortunately, what I think Houston will do, especially being in Texas where there's this inferiority complex with the Cowboys, rightfully, I could see Houston, if they have a surprise this year, well, if we just had Dalvin Cook, if we just had Aaron Jones, a true number one running back that we have the cap space to bring on, yeah, Houston's that franchise that would F this up. That's just the truth. And honestly, do you kind of blame them? I mean, they got Davis Mills on a rookie contract, a cheap rookie contract. They got Peirce on a rookie contract. So even if they're like, hey, we're going to be with Peirce for a long time, but let's get another number one in here, and then Peirce is the change it back. You could see in 1 year this all getting shattered. Because, Jeff, I think the greatest fear would be that they are a 9-win team. Because then it's going to be like, we just need that one more piece. One piece. And then that's what scares me about Peirce. Now, if they're a 5-win team, maybe it's a better buy. But I don't believe that this will be their running back room next year. And then do we think they're going to bring somebody in, another rookie? Probably not. They're probably going to bring in a veteran. What if they bring Kareem Hunt in? He's a free agent. Jacobs. That change. Now you're looking at splitting carries, and that makes me nervous. Now, but if I can get Peirce cheap, yeah. But I don't know if I'm giving up a lot for him right now.
Would you give up a first-round pick for him?
If I lose a running back during the season and he's producing, and I feel like I have a chance to win the league, yeah. If not, no.
All right. Zach, what do you think about Dameon Peirce?
I mean, I've been big on Dameon Peirce for a while now. He was like the only plug and play for quite some time. This entire draft class, if you looked at it, every running back went to a pretty poor destination except for Dameon Peirce. And we talked about it earlier with Etienne, like rookie running backs are always great for fantasy. But you look at Elijah Mitchell last year, he wasn't high draft capital and he was super valuable for fantasy. So hopefully you can get the same outcome for Dameon Peirce. He looked great in preseason. I mean, if you really think Rex Burkhead is someone to threaten playing time, then I think you're going to be disappointed in that take. I agree with everybody here. Dameon Peirce this year, it could be murky for next year, but again, first round picks, like I think we always overinflate them, and you got to really look into more of the nuance of it. Like, look who you're trading first round. If you're getting the first round pick from the best team in the league, you're gonna get like the 11th or 11th, 12th pick. Like, is that really worth? You know what I'm saying? Like, is that really worth the running back? Or so I guess it's all team makeup at that point. If you start looking into like the semantics of it. So,
yeah. Like I said, I don't think he's going to be their number one running back next year, nor I think he'll be the number one running back the year after that. And Will said that they could bring someone in, they could draft someone, they could screw this up in so many different ways. And they don't have the draft capital invested in him. You brought up Elijah Mitchell, who did have a great year last year and is currently in position to have a good year this year. But we also, this is the 49ers.
And that's what the 49ers, right? They're known for their shenanigans. So, like, if the Houston Texans are less shenanigan-y, and he has an Elijah Mitchell-like rookie season. I don't know if it's very rare do you see running backs come in from free agency that are like, whoa, this guy is like Chase Edmonds was the big running back free agent this year. You know, like if that's the market next year, I mean, are you really threatened for his position? You know?
No, but Will brought up a couple guys when you talked about Tony Pollard earlier, Kareem Hunt, and then guys that are going to be moved on from, like Aaron Jones, possibly Zeke. And if the Vikings decide to move on from Dalvin Cook, there's just a lot of talent that I think could move next year at the running back position. So I'm just weary on Dameon Peirce. And to talk about the first round pick, even if it's at the end of the first round pick or at the end of the first round, in stacked draft classes, the previous 2 years, not this past draft, but the previous 2 years, we had really good draft classes overall as a whole. And that's kind of what people are projecting this next draft class to be, if not better than what we've seen. And we saw second round picks turn extremely, extremely valuable from those two draft classes. And I think end of first, beginning of the second round in this next draft class is going to be extremely valuable. And you're going to get a lot of guys, Jalen Waddle, Justin Herbert, Justin Jefferson, those type of guys available at those picks. And those guys were all going later than the beginning of the first and or end of the first, beginning of the second. And people say this next draft class is just going to be that much better. I don't know if you've checked in your Dynasty League. I currently own, I think, 5 second-round picks next year.
Yeah, you got – yeah. Oh,
and that's on purpose because I think there's going to be lots of value in the second round next year. But let's move on. We already talked about Jeff's sell. So, Will, your sell, talk about him.
I like to get out on wide receivers, even if I lose a year. So I'm preface that not thinking that this person's going to have a bad year. I think he's going to have a great year. So I think if you can sit on Cooper Kupp for a few games, it's probably time. If you're going to move him, this is the year to move him because I think this is when you'll get the most value. And Zach, I do like your point. Like you got to, to me, you do got to look at what the draft looks like next year. Who's the projection? Who's coming out? And how valuable is that pick? And I think the haul you could get for Cooper Kupp right now, just give it a couple. Like if Cooper Kupp has a big game tomorrow, woo,
he will too.
He will.
Yeah,
right. I agree. I think
people are watching this on Fridays. So did you see that big game by Cooper Kupp on Thursday night? Jeez.
Cooper Kupp, 2 touchdowns.
Him. But I'm just saying, like, if you're going to move him, because I don't. If you don't move him now, I think you got to keep him for. You might as well stay with him for a couple of years because you're not going to get really value. This is the year you'll get the best value for him. I'm a little worried about Stafford's arm, that elbow, something that we don't have the full story on that. And if Stafford's not there, if you can't get the ball to him, who is it worth it? So it's just kind of like if you're going to move him, if I had him on my roster in a dynasty and I could get a significant haul for him, like Drake London and a couple of first-round picks, gone right now.
Don't sleep on Bryce Perkins.
Who?
Exactly.
So that's why I have him on my list. I'd love to have him on my dynasty team. It'd be a great dilemma, but I would be taking offers for him.
Yeah, I think you could probably sell him high to a guy who is maybe a wide receiver away from a championship, or at least you can sell that narrative to a guy that's maybe not quite at that competing level, but if they had an extra 25 points a game, they'd be in that, championship
extra 25
tier.
An extra 20.
Yeah,
exactly. Like, he's probably not going to be great. Matthew Stafford he's not going to be great that far into the future. At this current level, Matthew Stafford won't be playing for that much longer.
No. This, guys, this could be Stafford's. Like, if Stafford doesn't put up good numbers this year, I can see the Rams moving on from him. Rams are not a team.
He'll just retire, I think.
Or they'll move him. Whatever. He can retire. They're not going to stick with him.
This game is dangerous.
If
this first game is dangerous against the Bills, man. To have him back there with that elbow.
Yeah.
He's going to be so juiced up, dude. He's not going to feel a thing. He'll feel it. He's going to feel it Friday morning. But trust me, they are going to pump him.
Nah, he won't even feel it Friday morning. He won't even feel it Friday morning. They'll make
slam.
And if there's one quarterback in the entire NFL that we should never even like test his toughness or being able to play through an injury, it's a guy that broke his back and continued to play football.
True.
So, I think at elbows, it's a baseball injury, they said. So I'm sure it's going to hurt being the quarterback. But like I said, they're going to take him into that special tent and they're going to get some of that good, Pfizer special. I don't feel anything.
Yeah, I think he's going to be good again this year. But if you can get a haul for him, especially if you're not a competing team this year and you have him, you definitely want to move on from him, get younger, and get some draft picks for next year's draft class that should be stacked. Jeff or Zach, anything you want to add before we move on to our last sell of the night? All right, Zach, you're on the floor. Who is your sell? Will brought him up earlier as a guy who could be playing for the Houston Texans next year.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's contractually, if that's even how that would work out. If he is I don't know if he is a free agent or not.
He's not a free agent. They'd have to cut him.
Okay, so if he were to be cut next year, but it's Aaron Jones, so a lot of hype surrounding AJ Dillon this year. This is clearly one of the better running back committees for fantasy. At the same time, you got to sell high on this guy while you can. I think Aaron Jones probably is going to finish off the peak of his fantasy production this season, and then from here, you're just going to slowly lose production each year, especially if he's not with the Packers or if AJ Dillon really is as good as everyone believes he is. You're going to be real upset that the value going into this season, where everyone's like, hey, he's going to be their number one target in the pass game. If AJ Dillon just emerges on the scene and just vultures all of the touchdowns, you're probably going to be a little upset with your the return with Aaron Jones' production.
Yeah, I agree. And looking at his contract, the way they have it set up, they have an out after this year. For 2023, his cap hit is going to be $20 million, and 2024 his cap hit is going to be $16 million. But it's only $9.5 million if they cut him after this season, so they'd save $10 million plus $16 million the year after. So that's a situation that's definitely worth monitoring as well. As you said, currently he's going to have a great year this year. I don't think anyone here is questioning that. He's going to see a ton of passing volume, but for after this year, whether he's the RB1 for the Texans next year, I'm not super intrigued by that if he's splitting with Dameon Peirce, or even if he's still there in Green Bay, but he's splitting with A.J. Dillon again. Aaron Rodgers isn't going to last for that much longer. So I would definitely be looking to move Aaron Jones if you can get a significant haul, or if you can just get younger at the running back position and probably add, another piece somewhere, another draft pick. That's something I'd be looking to do. Jeff or Will, anything you want to add to the Aaron Jones situation?
No, I get it. It scares me. I've got him now in one of my leagues, and I'm actually looking about trying to package something for Dameon Peirce.
There you go. Just get a little younger.
Exactly.
They're probably not going to finish too far if both remain healthy.
Right.
I would imagine they're not going to finish too far apart in just overall standings.
The only thing I'm looking at is I think he does have one more year in Green Bay, because I don't think I think Rodgers will have something to say about them getting rid of him. I know he trusts both of the guys, but that might be the one thing that was just like, don't let this guy go. And I think they might listen to Aaron just for one more year, just entertain him. But then again, I'm already afraid of him this year, losing a lot of goal line carries to A.J. Dillon. I'm just looking at him for PPR as far as getting a bunch of reception.
Yeah,
hopefully.
He's a big sell if for the people that somehow still playing standard leagues. He's a huge sell, I guess. Right. Even half PPR too, but full PPR, I would imagine he's just going to be super valuable this season, just off of the target volume.
Right. Yeah, that was the only reason. I know I took a lot of flack, and I'm looking at the guy. He's right above me. Took a lot of flack when I took Josh Allen in our Fantasy Football Network League, because I looked at those things. I looked at, the rest of the guys were there in timeshares. So, it was Jones, And then at the time, we did not know if Kamara was going to be facing suspension or anything. So I never got a chance to explain myself since I wasn't on the live. So I thought I'd take the time now to go ahead.
But so Jeff took Josh Allen at the 10th overall when he could have had Stephon Diggs and taken Josh Allen around later. So
I was like, let me just lock him in now. We're in
no
we're
one
in
was taking Josh
a
Allen.
14-team league, so I went for the best player on the board. That
I'm
was
with you, John. That Jeff.
I think
14
Josh
teams?
Allen is going to have 50 touchdowns this year, so he'll be far and away, only between him and Herbert. And I thought if I took Josh Allen, Herbert would be going very soon after. So, that was my thing.
Nice.
That's why I didn't take Aaron Jones.
Yeah, let's end the show there. I want to thank the three of you guys for joining me as always. And I hope everyone watching enjoyed. I hope you guys enjoyed this week of football. We'll be back again next week. Who knows what we'll be talking about. We'll have to see what happens this weekend. But make sure you go out, enjoy some football, and, have some fun. Have some fun with it this weekend.
Good luck in fantasy. We'll see
Good
who's
luck,
crying
everybody.
next week. If you win or lose, go on media and take it like a man or give it like a champ. There it is.
That's right.
Do your weekday presser after you win or lose.
There you
Fuck
go.
yeah. Broncos country.
Broncos. That's right.
All right. Thanks again, guys. Hope everyone enjoyed.
Thanks,
See
guys.
you later.
Bye.